how are you? What's been keeping you busy during this crazy time we're in right now?
What else keeps me busy? Music. I'm in my studio more than ever. I've been ordering a lot of stuff from Sweetwater and spending money I shouldn't be spending. Buying gear. But I'm loving it, It's time I could spend in the studio and I don't have to feel guilty about there's nowhere to go tomorrow. I split the time up between my music and hanging out with my wife, going shopping with masks on and gloves. So I'm loving it. I got a kind of built a new Pro Tools rig in the last 3 months. Spent a good amount of money and I'm having a ball.
That's awesome. And how has the stuff right now been affecting Silvertomb? Did you have any tours planned or anything?
Yeah, it shot us right out of the water. We were supposed to go on tour North America with Monster Magnet. March 18th. It was like March 18th or something like that. We were just supposed to be getting home like 2 days ago.
Oh my gosh.
We were going to do like Canada, North America, and now also it was pushed up till January 2021. That tour. And then also I just got noticed that Psycho Las Vegas has been pushed up to 2021. We were supposed to do that as well in August. So, yeah, have you been hurting just as bad as everybody else?
Yeah. What an incredibly frustrating time. Yeah, I actually totally forgot that you were going to be on that Monster Magnet tour. Dave Windorf was the second guest on this podcast. So,
oh, cool.
Yeah, we had a great time. I absolutely love that dude. He told me, he told me some wild, ridiculous stories. So it's cool that you guys are both on it. So anyway, to start things off with Typo Negative, Peter, was like the biggest presence as far as like writing lyrics and his press presence and everything. But I've always felt, and this is going to totally sound like I'm, blowing smoke up your ass, but I've always felt like your guitar solos have really sort of sealed every song being like a really sensual song and being really like to cap off the romantic feel of it, like in Be My Druidess and in Love You to Death and stuff like that. Like your guitar solo is like a soaring part at the end that really ties it all together. So when you guys decided to shift from like a more aggressive sound to the more romantic sound that you had later, how did you approach that with your guitar playing? Did you decide to have that feeling or did it just come naturally?
Well, Pete always laid down the foundation and the work for it, that's the direction he wanted to go in. He wanted to get more atmospheric, melodic. And, whatever would go with the song, and more of a dream state kind of guitar tone, a lot more effects, reverb, anything to make it sound like you're in a silky dream. Mm-hmm. Because that's just kind of like what he was going for, and that's how the stuff was developing,
I feel like Silky Dream is a really excellent way of phrasing that.
Yeah, especially the October Rush. The whole thing, it's a very silky, layered album, It's very furry all over, So it puts you in a state of mind, It really puts you in a place. Mm-hmm. You can like picture the candles and the smell of wax burning, mm-hmm. when you listen to it.
Yeah. So
the guitar solos had to have that waxy candle burning feel and sound to them, all the guitar work did. Mm-hmm. Peter did a lot of the guitar work on it as well, so.
So after the first two records, after like Slow, Deep, and Hard and Origin of the Feces, the band definitely took a turn. Obviously, Bloody Kisses still had some like experimental, wacky stuff on it, but there was a lot more of a romantic sound. How did you guys decide to shift the band that direction?
No, I don't think it was really like a unanimous decision or anything. That's the stuff Peter was coming up with, It's the way he wanted to go. He's getting a lot of attention from females. I think he just wanted to amplify that. To tell you the truth. He had much of October Rust was worked out. When he came down to the studio, a pretty laid out format for the record. So he had a good, clear idea of what he wanted to do. That's the way he wanted to go. He wanted to get more romantic, more atmospheric. And I think he wanted to get away from the aggression and the screaming and the yelling, He's kind of sick of doing anything for too long,
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, between Carnivore and everything else and all the hardcore stuff that he did, he was screaming and yelling for many years. So, enter the crooning phase of Type O Negative.
So, I guess, it's really interesting. It's like the chicken or the egg. Like, which comes first? Women giving you more attention and then your music becoming more romantic because you want more of it? Or, like, purposely writing romantic music so that women will give you more attention?
Well, I think that the first idea going from Slow, Deep, and Hard to Bloody Kisses was to write more melodic. That was the challenge, It's like Pete always said, it's way harder to write a melody than to scream your head off. So that was the first stage, making music that was more melodic, which required singing. That's how he started developing his singing style and his tone, which was very unique right from the start, you could hear pieces of it in Slow, Deep, and Hard. There was moments where he almost sang, but, it just was taken further with Bloody Kisses. So it started with trying to become more melodic, keeping the dark atmosphere of the band, and the attitude of the band, but being more melodic, and it was purposely geared towards being romantic or females involved. I think Peter was always honest, with his writing, and women were always a very upfront concern for him, front and center.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even Slow, Deep, and Hard, even though Slow, Deep, and Hard is basically, 70 minutes of screaming and yelling, it's all about a woman,
Right.
Just not in such a positive light,
Right. He was very mad at that woman.
Yeah. Well, it was about, being hurt. So, and the phases of emotion you go through when you've been betrayed, So.
Do you remember the story of what happened that inspired him to write that song or that whole album?
His ex-girlfriend, who he was really crazy about. I won't mention her name because I can't remember her name. But, and this is right before Type O formed. She apparently cheated on him. He was very in love with her. And she was she was a kind of a goth chick, she liked alternative underground stuff, She was listening to Nick Cave, stuff like that, Thought Peter was like a heavy metal moron, Ended up cheating on him and hence gave birth to the lyrics for Slow, Deep, and Hard, which is basically, 70 minutes of spewing, of raging, So, yeah, she was the inspiration for that. I had never actually, I don't believe I ever met her in person. I might have for a minute somewhere at some show, but probably not. She was pretty much out of Peter's life when Type O formed. Type O formed in the summer of '89, so that was already over. The lyrics were already written. And shortly after we had formed, we had started actually rehearsing the stuff in a small studio on Clinton Road. So I heard all about this lady through those lyrics only. So what you know about her is what I know about her.
So in the first song on the record, Unsuccessfully Coping with the Natural Beauty of Infidelity. Every time I say the name of that song, I feel like I'm always going to fuck it up because it's so long. But so that song, it's always been really funny to me. It's like kind of a tongue-in-cheek, funny song where he's like making fun of himself just as much as he's angry at the woman because he's like like, you make me hate myself. And
he meant that. He meant that.
Right. But like, there's always like a funny way to it that like you can laugh with him, even though he's going through heartache.
Yeah, it's a tragic irony of his sense of humor. You know, it's he always saw the folly in it, in the tragedy of it.
And in the middle of the song, there's like the woman who's like orgasming, and then he screams at the end, like right when she's like coming.
well, that what that's supposed to be is she's banging some dude, and he walks in and opens the door and catches them and screams, "Ah!"
It's genius.
Yeah, it's genius.
Well, that song also has one of my favorite funny typo moments where he goes, Kenny, and then you play a guitar solo. And also when he's like, check this out, and like does his bass solo. So it seemed like you guys were having a really good time, even though he was going through heartache.
Yeah, at that point, I think he was over it, you know. The lyrics had been written. He was pretty much over her by then. By the time we were actually recording it, you know, and working out the music. She was long gone.
So after that phase, when you guys started going more romantic and writing songs like Christian Woman, On Bloody Kisses, did you notice a shift in the amount of women coming to shows?
Well, when we were locally, we were gaining popularity locally. It went from, because obviously when we first started out, it went from basically a carnivore fan base, skinheads, to metalheads, and then like Bloody Kisses, it was mixed, you know. There was some females, not many. I'd say maybe, 12%, something like that. But only after Bloody Kisses was released, and then we started touring. And the first video was released for Black Number One. And then it started being played. Then a flood of women started coming down to the shows. And, you know, I don't know exactly why. It's a mix between the music and Peter's image, I would imagine, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like we were aiming to do that, you know. We were targeting females. It just happened. And then I guess we just went with it, you know. And really, you know, at the time that grunge exploded, right? And everybody was wearing flannel and knapsacks and stuff. And they were playing down the whole sex, drugs, and rock. The sex and rock and roll thing wasn't cool anymore. The drugs were, but the sex and rock and roll wasn't cool anymore. But we were still like this stripper band downtown. And like every night there was like 80 strippers, you know? It's unbelievable.
That's amazing. That must have been really fun.
It was fun, yeah. It was a lot of fun. I mean, every night was a Saturday night. You know, the people were like, we would like pack the front lounge of the bus and pass drinks out to everybody and crank up the music. Everybody be dancing, the bus would be rocking. It was fun. We had a blast. You know, it was always like, well, this could be over any minute, so let's make the best of it right now. Who knew that it would go on, 25 years?
Tell me about the first time that a woman paid attention to you because you were in typo negative.
I'd say that'd have to go way, way back, to the very beginning. And playing Lemoore and stuff. I don't remember specifically. I do remember that I used to basically live in Lemoore, that was the rock club in Brooklyn everybody went to. And I had my girlfriends here and there, a couple of waitresses here and there back in the past, but once the typo started gaining popularity, and suddenly, a lot of girls are interested in me. Which is, obviously bullshit, but it is what it is. I had already been with Bonnie, who's now my wife. I met Bonnie in 1986.
Wow.
Yeah. Pre-typo. Oh.
What was it like being in a serious relationship while all this was going on?
Really hard. I mean, we had a volatile relationship right from the start, me and Bonnie. And, of course, rock and roll just intensified that and complicated it even more, So it was very much on and off, breaking up, getting back together. I remember specifically things like being on Sunset Boulevard in California, tired, hungover at 9 in the morning with her breaking up with me on a payphone, That's it! I'm leaving you! No, wait! Yeah.
How did you win her back?
I don't know. I always did. I always talked her back into it somehow. Yeah. I don't know. We spent a lot of time imploding, exploding. It was very passionate, and it was very. There was a lot of turmoil. Very tumultuous relationship always. And I think that was part of the attraction.
Yeah,
that was part of what made it hot. These days we're a lot calmer.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's not quite as crazy with Silver Tomb as it was.
After 2 kids, and being together for 32 years, me and Bonnie. I think we finally found a place where we're more content with each other, and not always having to be at each other's throats and hearts simultaneously.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
So, did you guys have a system for getting groupies to the back to meet up with Peter? Or how did that work? Did they just sort of show up?
Well, back in the day, yeah, we had techs that would go out and they would give out backstage passes and go pick them. And Peter would give them tips or money, the techs, if they came back one and he got lucky. Give them $50, So they would go in and they would just pile out, they'd just collect up the girls, and then after the show, they'd all come backstage or on the bus.
Wow. I love that they got tipped extra for finding groupies for Peter.
Yeah.
That must have been fun.
He wouldn't stay on, he wasn't like Gene Simmons. He wouldn't stay on stage and point at girls or anything like that. But they would just go out and, I would guess, collect as many as they thought were good looking and then bring them back.
As many as Peter could handle for one night.
I think they were interested in themselves too, and the ones he rejected, probably wanted to go for them.
Yeah.
But it was fun. It was always interesting, There was always these crazy people all backstage, every night, and party was on every night. Every night was a Saturday night for many years.
What's one of the weirdest things that you saw during that time?
Oh, weird. I've seen a lot of horrible things too that were traumatic.
Yeah.
That I'd rather forget. But you mean as far as girls go?
I mean, we could talk about whatever. Yeah, I mean, at what point were you just looking at this scene going, oh my God, what have we done? This is insane.
Many points, Points where there were husbands and boyfriends banging on the bus door, waiting for their wives and their girlfriends, stuff like that. At certain points I was like, what is going on here, and we're going to pay for this one day. Yeah.
Did Peter ever get into any fights with the boyfriends and husbands?
No, he always managed to stay separate from all that. You always have a tour manager and people, as a buffer between any of us in a situation like that. But there was one situation that happened when we were opening up for Danzig. This was probably 1993, I'm thinking. And then we were playing in San Francisco. I forget, Warfield in San Francisco, I believe, with Danzig. And a guy, we were on stage, Typo was on stage, and a guy had tried to walk in through the front door without paying a ticket, and the security guy tried to stop him, and the guy took out a knife and stabbed him to death right there.
Oh, my God.
This is the security guy for the place. And my bus driver, who was 3 feet tall, she maybe 5 feet, all right? 3 feet is an exaggeration, he's about 5 feet tall, tackled the guy down to the ground, got the knife from him. Anyhow, the guy went away for murder for 15 years, but apparently he was trying to kill somebody in typo negative.
Wow.
I'm assuming it was Peter. So, for God knows what reason,
But you think it might have been like a jealous ex?
Absolutely. I mean, why else would it be? You know, I mean, the guy wasn't like psychotic or anything. He was angry.
Right.
And then 15 years later, as odd as it might be, we were playing the same venue again in San Francisco. And Josh was in the front lounge of the bus and got a knock on the door. And it was the same guy who had just been released from prison 2 days prior.
Oh my God. And he still wouldn't let it go?
But what are the odds? 2 days prior, he gets released and we play in the same damn place. Yeah, we had to we took pictures. They took pictures of him and hung him up all over the venue. Quarantined Peter for the whole show.
Jesus. Were you terrified?
I mean, yeah. I mean, you know, people are crazy. You know, you never know what to expect from anybody. I mean, I think this was pre-Dimebag, what happened, before what happened to Dime, I believe. I don't really remember. I think so, though. It was. But, yeah, he got into the show, too. They let him in. And they just watched him.
Wow. I can't believe he didn't just get kicked out entirely. That seems insane to me.
I believe they let him in. They checked him for anything, you know, for weapons or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Like, listen, you can't kill them, but you can watch the show. Jesus. So what was it like when the groupie situation got so ridiculous that Peter was then invited on Jerry Springer to do that groupie episode?
That was hilarious, man. That was a hilarious episode.
It was.
Peter had a knack for picking what we call professionals. The one girl at the concert who showed up with a suitcase, you know, to move in with us. One girl came on the bus with a suitcase once. I looked at Peter like, really? It got whacked, you know. They after like Playgirl and all that stuff, they started seeking him out, you know. Mm-hmm. And Sharon Osbourne was like blown away by, like, at the time he was touring. We were touring with Ozzy. He had like a different like supermodel every day on the side of the stage, and Sharon was like, I can't believe him. She was convinced he was gay because he was with a different woman every day.
Oh, my gosh.
He was faking it.
That's hilarious. So behind the scenes, did Peter ever seem like, he's like, what kind of thing am I creating here?
Oh, he loved it. Are you kidding me? He loved every minute of it. I mean, there's a few things he liked about rock and roll. Number one, he liked writing music and recording. And he liked drinking, and he liked women. He hated touring. He hated playing live. He hated doing interviews. He hated everything else, you know. So, you know, it was his dream come true, you know, and he had to hear him backstage every day, you know. Spent a lot of money on plane flights and stuff, too. Flying him around.
Flying the women around? Did you always get along with the women that were hanging out with him?
No, not always. So most of the time they were lunatics. Sometimes they were nuts, you know. And then, you know, sometimes they would talk down to like me and Johnny and stuff. Like, since they were with Peter, they had a higher position than us. I was like, are you kidding me? Get out of here. And then, you know, some of them were really cool, and some of them hung out for years. They would come back, you know, and they became friends with us, you know, over the years.
So, though, in the Jerry Springer episode, there's one girl where Peter looks at her and he goes, oh, I know her. Was that an act, or was that really somebody that hung out with you guys all the time?
I think she was familiar. We all knew her. Everybody knew her. Everybody who toured knew her, you know. If I remember right. Yeah, she was, you know, at all the shows. At all the Ozfests. A professional.
Mm-hmm. And was there ever any time when any of this craziness was going on that you thought, like, screw this, I'm out of here? Or was it always a good time?
I thrive on chaos. I always have. So it was never chaotic enough for me. No, never. Except, not as far as that one. Especially that period of time was all fun, But it only got bad because of drugs later on. 2005, 2007 touring. Then, even then I was always, crazy, as far as going on binges and stuff like that and doing crazy shit. But it didn't really get dark until like 2007, 2008, which is pretty much close to the end.
Mm-hmm.
Where I would just look around like, the wheels are falling off the bus. It's got to end sooner or later. It's got to end in a bad way,
Mm-hmm.
And it did. It eventually did.
Now, how does it feel now watching people idolize Peter as like a sex symbol or idolize Typo Negative as being like representational of sex and all of this stuff?
I think, like, to me, Typo represents a wide range of stuff, I mean, it's so eclectic from the first release on. We still have skinheads that are into the band,
Mm-hmm.
So that's one part of Typo, I think it's a big part, And the whole Peter becoming a sex symbol thing was cool and funny, but there was also a kind of like a downside of it, Where I know he was kind of, in the end he regretted doing the whole Playgirl thing and stuff. So it became a little more, too much image. And I think it took some respect away from the band in some ways, But I think it's an integral part of who we are, what we are. I think that even though a lot of the lyrical content on October Rust is, hyper romantic, and
Mm-hmm.
I think Peter was really being honest with a lot of that stuff. A lot of it was his fantasies, I mean, not so much Wolf Moon, that's a little bit more of a tongue-in-cheek thing.
How so?
Well, you know what it's about, right?
Yeah. Well, to anybody who's listening, it's
I
about.
don't think he was daydreaming about turning into a werewolf after, going down on a girl with a period. I think he was just trying to be funny.
Right.
Although, we could do some French interviews and they were like, what does this song mean? It's so deep. And Peter would come up with the explanation, That's I think that's why he wrote the lyrics. Just so he knew that kind of stuff would happen, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you say Peter regretted doing the whole Playgirl thing.
He did, yeah. He absolutely did.
There's a widely talked about rumor that that's because he discovered later that Playgirl was mostly for gay men. Is that true?
No, that was one of the down things, like, for him. Like, it was kind of weird sometimes having gay guys come up to him, but he was never, like, he was always cool with them and stuff. But no, that's not why. I think he just felt in the end, it was a little bit. I mean, you go naked in front of millions of people, at a spur of a moment. It was really a spur of a moment decision because the opportunity came. And the decision was made within a day or two to do it. He didn't have a whole lot of time to think about it because my manager was like, do it. It's going to be great press. And Josh said, do it. It could be great press.
Right.
I was really not into it. I was like, are you sure you want to do this? So at the time we were kind of like coming to the top of our game and stuff, kind of high on life. And he was like, fuck it, I'll do it. And he went and did it, It's like one of those things you maybe should have forgot. You forgot not to do. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe if you had like just a couple more days to really think about what you want in life, then maybe you would have made a different decision.
We were playing in, I think, Norway or something. I forgot where. But I don't know if it was a festival or we went to a Metallica show. And we went backstage to see the guys. And James Hetfield came out of the dressing room and looked at Peter and went, "I saw you naked. I saw you naked." I mean, that was embarrassing. You know, I felt kind of embarrassed for him. But
Yeah, I can imagine having James Hetfield make fun of you because he saw your dick. Was kind of that would have been weird.
So, you know, I mean, it's kind of a historic thing now. So it is what it is. But, you know, he probably would have changed. He probably would have done it differently after the opportunity. If he could go back and redo it, he probably wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Those pictures really crack me up because, you know, obviously they're great photos. Obviously, I and every straight woman likes to look at them. But what really makes me laugh about them was that he kept his Casio watch on.
That's Peter.
It's like, no, this is my accessory and I'm leaving it.
His Casio watch. Old Spice and Casio watches, man. And a sweaty green shirt. That was Peter for real.
Oh, man. Sounds amazing. So there's been many different eras of feminism that have come and gone in rock and roll. And these days, there are obviously still tons and tons of women that love Peter and love his lyrics. But there's also people who find his lyrics to be misogynist, especially in the early days, like, calling women... like calling the one woman that he's angry at a slut and stuff like that. What would you say to those people that maybe are taking those things that way?
Oh, well, that's exactly what that was referring to. One woman that you were angry with her. What do you do when you're betrayed by a woman? You use language like that. Everyone does.
Right.
You know, when you're angry. So it was just being real. He wasn't generally being, sexist. He wasn't being sexist at all. He was just expressing an inner emotion of frustration and anger at one woman, not all women. Mm-hmm. So that's what I would say to that.
Makes
and
sense.
As far as that goes, that whole theory, the women were the center of Peter's life. He had 6 sisters, and a mother. Don't forget.
Mm-hmm.
Older, all of them older than him. So basically, he had 7 mothers. So, Peter loved women. I don't believe that any of the typo lyrics were sexist.
I personally completely agree with you. I just like having it on record, like what you would tell those people. I feel like in my life, I have used just as bad of language, if not worse, about men that have wronged me. So,
right.
That's just what happens when you're angry and heartbroken.
Right. And we all do. So, and I'm sure all those people who are making these accusations do. And they're just the word police,
Right.
Can't use these words.
There's a part in the behind the scenes After Dark movie that's on YouTube. I'm not sure what year it was filmed, probably like Bloody Kisses era. But there's a part where Johnny is pulled aside and he says he feels like Typo was a band where men could express emotions that weren't necessarily acceptable at the time or like encouraged because you're allowed to talk about being heartbroken or sad or anything that wasn't necessarily going on in metal for many men at the time. Was that intentional? And do you agree with that?
I think that Peter was just honest, when not with all of his lyrics, but when he was honest, he was really honest, Those are my favorite, but my favorite stuff that he wrote lyrically was the stuff that was true. It was based in truth, like the entire So Deep and Hard record. Some of his best lyrics, World Coming Down, incredible. Especially if you listen to the lyrics. I can't listen to the lyrics because they're all prophetic and they're so brutally true. They came true, all of them.
Yeah.
So I think, he was 6'6", 250 pounds. He didn't have any fear about expressing his softer side. Who's going to fuck with him,
Right.
And it kind of like, it was kind of a charming thing, to have such a big guy with fangs talk about his feelings.
Do you feel like it's easier for men to express that stuff in 2020 than it was in 1995?
Not in metal, not in rock, no. Not in metal. I mean, metal is more over the top, no dynamics, everything, screaming more than ever, as far as I can hear. So it's still the same thing, as far as heavy music goes. You can't be talking about anything that doesn't kick ass, that isn't badass.
Do you wish that was different?
Hell yeah. I'm 53 years old. You don't want to talk about some real stuff. I don't want to, I'm not 17 years old.
Right.
I mean, I always rather talk about life and real things rather, than pounding my fist in the air,
I feel like Typo carved out a place for men, maybe in younger generations, maybe it's like, maybe the waves are coming now, that realize that there's nothing unmanly about being romantic, or like expressing heartache or expressing real emotions that aren't just like anger.
Yeah, well, that's very one-dimensional if you're just expressing anger. So I think one thing Peter definitely got right was he definitely expressed the full spectrum of emotions. From screaming anger and emotional agony to romance and everything between, love and everything between. That's how it should be if you're an artist. You should be exploring all the aspects of emotion in life, I mean, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, the Typo have a broad spectrum of expression in it.
How do women treat the band differently now? Like when you go on tour, how do women interact with rock and roll differently than they did 25 years ago?
Well, I haven't thought about. I'm sure there isn't any difference. There's definitely a difference with me because I'm in an older age group now. So they definitely treat me different. I treat them different, but I'm sure young bands out there, they're going through the same crazy shit that we went through. Some primal things will never change.
Right. So skipping forward to modern day non-Typo stuff, when you're on tour now, how do you and your wife maintain good communication?
Well, it's a lot easier. I mean, I can FaceTime her just like this, right? I mean, years ago, when I first started going on tour, there were no cell phones. Like I said, I remember my wife breaking up with me on a payphone on Sunset Boulevard, and the operator going, "Would you please insert 4 more quarters?" So you could really get lost back then. She was mad at me and I was mad at her and I didn't want to call her, we didn't talk to each other. We didn't talk to each other sometimes for 2 weeks, when I was on the road. Now, there's people backstage, there's people at the show, they're they're filming everything and sending my wife clips. And so it's a lot easier to stay in touch with each other. It's a lot easier for her to track me, let me put it that way.
Do you ever long for the days of being able to just sort of disappear?
Hell yeah, of course. Of course. Who wants to feel like they're being spied on, everywhere they go, and especially me, I do so much stupid, retarded stuff, and it always ends up getting filmed by somebody's phone, ending up on some social media site.
Has that happened recently?
I'm sure it has. I haven't been on social media for the last few months, but
that's probably a good thing.
Yeah,
it's probably a good time in history to not be on social media. So, what do you think is the biggest or like the best advice that you could give people that want to have a long-lasting marriage like yours?
Jesus Christ, I wish I could really define that. It's amazing that my wife is still with me. I have no idea why she's still with me. She should have left me decades ago. But one thing of obvious, it's the obvious things, you have to really see eye to eye on on major things in life, like the major things like politics and where your general outlook on life, your philosophies, whatever they might be, your religion or whatever that might be. And if you can end up having kids, of course, you have to see eye to eye and how to raise kids. So those are really important things. And of course, having things in common, too. Likes, what you like, what you're into. And that might change, as time goes on. So you also have to be open to those changes in the other person, what they're into, what they are, new things that they are into. You have to keep up with that. So, and if you want to stay married as a man for any length of time, usually the answer is yes. Okay. Whatever the question is. Even if you have no intentions on doing it.
They'll figure that out later. Just dissolves an argument in the moment. What do you think is the biggest misconception about Peter?
I think a lot of people, a lot of the conceptions the general public has of him is that he's this big, huge, tough guy, full of muscle, and he's mean and all that stuff. And he's quite the opposite. He was a hypersensitive, ultra-sensitive human being. Very complicated, ultra-sensitive human being. I mean, it took a lot just to get him to leave his house and go on the road, He was very shy, extremely shy. Hypersensitive person, I mean, you would know that if you're a Type O fan because you read the lyrics and you saw the interviews, But the people in the general public don't delve into all that. They see just the outer image,
And what was your favorite thing about Peter? What did you love most about him?
His sense of humor. He made me laugh my ass off, For 25 years more. It's funny. We could always hang out anytime, anywhere, drink and laugh, no matter how horrible the situation was. And we've been in a lot of horrible situations.
How does it feel to be in a band that is regarded as such a legendary piece of rock and roll history?
Oh, I'm proud of it. I have a sense of pride. And, I'm very proud, that we achieved what we were going to achieve, what we ended up achieving. We never thought we were going to get that far,
Mm-hmm.
It would last that long. And, I guess in a large way, having some amount of permanence through art or your music is really the goal, and we've achieved that to some degree. The music will be around for a long time, hopefully a lot longer than me. It's a great feeling. It's a really great feeling when, I'm walking through Manhattan or I'm on the subway or whatever, and I run into fans, they just come up to me, and it's always like a whole lot of love, and, and they're honest love. That's great.
That must feel really good.
Yeah. It does.
Well, we are all incredibly, incredibly grateful for the contributions that you have given us and how much you've moved us. Type O is an amazing band, and
thank you.
And thank you so much for sharing all that with me. I feel really honored to hear all those crazy backstage stories and all that.
Anytime.
James Hetfield one especially tickled me. Anyway, thank you so much, Kenny. And I'll talk to you soon.
All right, cool. Thanks, Kat.
This episode of Hot Blooded was hosted, written, and produced by me.